From the moment you can understand stories, you're told the same script. Love is pure. Love is selfless. Love will complete you. And if it's real, it will last forever. Fairy tales tell you the prince and princess live happily ever after. Hollywood tells you love conquers all. Music tells you you're nobody until somebody loves you. By the time you're a man, this myth is stitched into your soul. You don't just believe it, you expect it. And when reality doesn't match the story, you blame yourself, her, or fate for ruining what was supposed to be perfect. Friedrich Nietzsche saw through this centuries ago. To him, this vision of love wasn't noble. It was a cultural invention, a romanticized distortion built to keep people obedient to ideals that rarely exist in nature. The demand to be loved is the greatest of all pretensions, Nietzsche. He believed that most love as we experience it is tangled up with possession, instinct, and the will to influence or control, whether we admit it or not. The lie is that love is purely selfless, eternal, and immune to the realities of human nature. That lie is dangerous because it sets you up for betrayal, not by her, but by reality itself. When she stops loving the way you imagined, you think something went wrong. Nietzsche would say nothing went wrong. You simply collided with the truth. The truth? Love is rarely the flawless, unconditional force you were promised. It is shaped by needs, desires, instincts, and power. And until you see that, you'll keep mistaking the story for the reality. For Nietzsche, love was never separate from his core idea, the will to power. This isn't about domination in the crude sense. It's the fundamental drive of all life, the urge to expand, to influence, to shape the world and the people in it according to one's vision. In romance, the will to power is everywhere, though it often hides beneath softer words. When you fall in love, you don't just want her presence. You want her attention. You want her loyalty. You want to be her one and only, to occupy a space in her mind that no one else can. And she doesn't just want you to exist in her life. She wants you to be a certain kind of man, one who fulfills her needs, her desires, her vision of the future. Nietzsche argued that this isn't corruption, it's nature. Love, as we live it, is rarely pure affection. It's a dance of influence, where each partner seeks, consciously or not, to mold the other into something that secures their own sense of power and stability. In the end, every love wants to be an exception to the rule. Nietzsche. The problem is not that love contains this instinct. The problem is that we deny it. We hide the will to power under the language of selflessness, convincing ourselves that we only want what's best for them, when what we often mean is, I want what's best for me, through them. This doesn't make love fake. It makes it human. But if you don't see the will to power at work in romance, you'll be shocked when affection turns into negotiation, attraction into leverage, and intimacy into a quiet struggle for influence. Once you see it, you can love with awareness, knowing that every romance is a balance between giving, receiving, and the will to shape each other's lives. One of the greatest illusions about love is that it's selfless. We're taught that the highest form of love is sacrifice. I'd do anything for you. Your happiness matters more than mine. Real love expects nothing in return. But Nietzsche saw through this mask. He believed that what looks like selflessness is often just self-interest in disguise. A man says he would give up everything for her, but beneath it is a silent bargain. If I give you all of me, you'll never leave. A woman sacrifices her ambitions for him, but hidden inside is the hope. If I do this, you'll always take care of me. Even kindness, Nietzsche argued, can be a subtle form of control. When you give endlessly, you may not be doing it purely for their sake. You may be doing it to secure your place, to earn recognition, or to guarantee loyalty. There is always some madness in love, but there is also always some reason in madness. Nietzsche. This is why so many relationships collapse under resentment, because what was framed as selfless giving was actually a hidden contract. And when the other person doesn't fulfill their part, doesn't give the validation, the security, or the devotion you secretly expected, the illusion shatters. The danger isn't in wanting something back. The danger is in pretending you don't. When you deny your self-interest, you set yourself up to be blindsided when it inevitably shows itself. Nietzsche's brutal clarity is this: love is never purely selfless. It always carries motives, survival, desire, validation, legacy. The sooner you accept this, the sooner you stop being disillusioned by the myth of pure love. Here's where Nietzsche's lens cuts the deepest. Men project purity onto women. We convince ourselves that her love is unconditional, untouched by strategy, free from calculation. But Nietzsche would say this is your illusion, not her truth. From an evolutionary standpoint, her instincts are precise and often ruthless. To secure a partner who can provide stability, to choose a man whose strength or status elevates her position, to protect her future and her children's future at all costs. These drives aren't malicious, they're ancient. They've been honed over millennia of survival. But when you ignore them, when you pretend she loves in the same pure way you were taught to imagine, you set yourself up for heartbreak. What is done out of love always takes place beyond good and evil. Nietzsche. The irony is that her shadow instincts often wear the mask of light. Her nurturing may double as a way to secure your loyalty. Her admiration may fade when your status slips. Her tenderness may shift into cold pragmatism when her survival feels threatened. But here's the twist. She's not faking it. She believes in the moment that she loves you absolutely, but those deeper instincts are always at play, quietly influencing when that love deepens and when it withdraws. The tragedy for men is that we confuse instinct for betrayal. When she chooses differently or pulls away, we cry, "She lied." Nietzsche would say she didn't lie. You lied to yourself by refusing to see what was always operating beneath the surface. Her instincts aren't the problem. Your illusion is. And the man who refuses to pierce that illusion will forever mistake natural shifts in love for personal betrayal. Every love story has its moment of disillusionment. It's the point where the myth you've been clinging to collides with reality. For men, this moment is devastating because it feels like betrayal. But for Nietzsche, it's simply the truth finally revealed. At first, everything seems to match the story. She's devoted. She's constant. She's the one. But then, almost suddenly, her behavior changes. she withdraws, loses interest, or shifts her attention elsewhere. You think, she's changed. But Nietzsche would say, no, you just saw the part you refused to see before. This collapse happens because the lie of love cannot hold forever. The disguise of selflessness gives way to self-interest. The illusion of eternity collides with the reality of instinct, and the fantasy of being the one and only shatters against her deeper will to power, her shifting needs, her survival-driven choices. It is not a lack of love, but a lack of friendship that makes unhappy marriages. Nietzsche. The pain at this breaking point is raw, because you feel not just the loss of her, but the loss of the story you built your life around. You believed in unconditional love. You believed she was different, and when the mask slips, you feel robbed. But Nietzsche insists, nothing was stolen. You simply confronted the truth too late. The lie collapsed under its own weight. This is why heartbreak feels like death, because it's the burial of an illusion. But once the illusion is gone, you're finally free to see what love actually is, without the chains of fantasy. Most men never recover from the collapse. They either grow bitter, swearing off women altogether, or they chase the same illusion again, hoping the next time will be different. But Nietzsche offers another path, to love without the lie. This means stripping love of the illusions you were taught and seeing it as it really is, not a perfect fusion, not an eternal guarantee, not the selfless fairy tale. Instead, love becomes a conscious choice between two individuals, each with instincts, needs, and self-interest intact. You don't deny those drives. You acknowledge them. You don't worship her purity. You respect her complexity. And most importantly, you don't lose yourself in the hope of being completed by her. There is always some madness in love, but there is also always some reason in madness. Nietzsche. Loving without the lie means you give freely, but not as a bargain for validation. You stay sovereign, not enslaved to her moods or approval. You enjoy her light, but you don't pretend her shadow isn't there. You recognize that her love is real, but also bound to her instincts, just as yours is. In this vision, heartbreak is no longer a crisis. It's simply the natural end of a chapter, because you were never promised forever, and you never needed it. The man who can love without illusion no longer begs, clings, or collapses when things change. He knows the truth. Love is a gift, not a guarantee, and he can walk away with dignity because his worth was never hanging on her staying. This is not cynicism. This is clarity, and clarity is the soil in which real love, not fantasy, but truth, can actually grow. When Nietzsche stripped away the illusions of love, he wasn't trying to kill it. He was trying to free it. Because only when you stop demanding that love be eternal, selfless, and pure, can you finally love with strength instead of fear. That strength comes from Amor Fati, Nietzsche's call to love your fate. It means embracing life as it comes, without clinging, without resentment, without needing it to be different. Applied to love, it transforms everything. You don't beg for her to stay. You don't rage when she leaves. You don't collapse when the passion cools, because you no longer tie your worth to the illusion of permanence. You love fully in the moment, and if the moment ends, you honor that too. Amor Fati, Let that be my love henceforth. Nietzsche, this is the new strength in love. To love her, knowing her instincts may shift. To give without bargaining for immortality. To walk away with dignity when love has run its course. To face heartbreak not as a tragedy, but as proof that you lived and loved without fear. Myth tells us of Orpheus and Eurydice, where love collapses under illusion. Orpheus couldn't resist looking back, needing proof, clinging to what was already fragile, and in doing so, he lost her forever. Nietzsche's lesson is the opposite. Don't cling, don't demand, don't try to freeze love into eternity. Let it live, let it breathe, let it die if it must, and still say yes. This is the kind of love most men never reach, because it requires killing the biggest lie you were ever told. But once you do, you stop loving like a prisoner, and you start loving like a free man. So here it is, Nietzsche's forbidden truth. The biggest lie men believe is that love is selfless, eternal, and pure. But in reality, love is bound up with instincts, power, need, and self-interest. It is never free of these forces, and it doesn't need to be. The collapse of the illusion feels brutal, yes, but what dies is not love itself. What dies is your fantasy of it. And once that fantasy is gone, you're left with something far stronger. The ability to love without fear, without clinging, without the chains of false promises. You no longer need her to be your angel. You no longer need to be her savior. You no longer demand forever in order to feel secure. Instead, you can meet her as she is, a full human being with instincts, drives, and shadows. And you can meet yourself the same way. The demand to be loved is the greatest of all pretensions. Nietzsche. The truth now seen is this: you don't need love to be perfect for it to be real. You don't need it to last forever for it to matter. And you don't need the lie to live fully. Because when you stop asking love to rescue you, you finally learn how to stand on your own. And from that strength, you can love more fiercely than ever. So remember, the man who sees through the illusion is no longer ruled by it. And the man who is no longer ruled by it can finally love as a free man. Like, share, subscribe. Because somewhere right now, a man is still trapped in the biggest lie ever told about love. And this might be the moment he wakes up.